Hey everybody, it's your girl Nell. Welcome to Simply Nell's Tiny Studio. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope that you are having a fantastic day. A fantastic day. Because I'm having a pretty good day. Thank you so much. If you haven't already subscribed to Simply Nell's Tiny Studio, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe, and that way you will have an invitation always waiting on you to join me here in the Tiny Studio as I talk about all things crochet, dreadlocks, and of course, my obsession with vintage coach and other things related to the designer or contemporary designer handbag world, most notably Just Coach. So today, as I've been away, I've been in the Tiny Studio, and as I said in another video, my husband is suffering from stage 3 breast cancer, and I'm with him on this journey, in this battle for his life, for our life, and for the life of our family. But even though I'm doing that, I am very conscious and aware of what's going on in these social media streets, in these YouTube, TikTok, Instagram streets. And one of the subjects that came up is the subject of quiet fashion. What is quiet fashion? And should we subscribe to that or not? And when that topic came about, then there were other branches of this topic of quiet fashion that sprouted up. So first of all, let's get down to exactly what is quiet fashion. Quiet fashion is when you subscribe to the finer things in life, or the finer things in the world of fashion, but you're not necessarily broadcasting it. Okay? Broadcasting it means your items of apparel and accessories are not necessarily broadcasting the designer in which you are wearing. So for instance, you can be wearing some really comfortable looking loafers, leather loafers, but those loafers could indeed be manufactured or designed by Prada, let's say, but it doesn't have the Prada logo scrolled across it. Or you could be carrying a very beautiful patent leather handbag, right? But no one would know that that handbag was designed by, let's say, Saint Laurent. Okay, that's quiet fashion. That is when you are indulging in luxury designer goods, but you're not necessarily broadcasting the logos and the labels to the public. So no one would know that you or that I am wearing a Prada t-shirt. You wouldn't have known it, right? Because it's not ablazing across my my t-shirt. I'm not advertising the brand, but I know I know that it's a Prada t-shirt, and only I know, and now you know. And that is what quiet fashion is. Quiet fashion is not, it's a way of wearing your wealth, but you're not broadcasting it. Now, this is not a new conversation. This is really a conversation that has been had for many, many, many years. If you look back at history and classism, you will find that this thing called quiet fashion is something that has been going on and happening in the United States and some parts of Europe forever, or at least since the late, I want to say, 19th century is when you really see it happening. The influence of quiet fashion, or the so-called influence of quiet fashion, which really is, to be absolutely honest with you, it's a discussion of classism. That's what quiet fashion really is a conversation about. It's about classism, or new money versus old money. Old money is perpetuated as quiet fashion, and new money is perpetuated as flashiness. Flashiness, right? That's what new money is, or what some people are ascribing to the opposite of what quiet fashion is. Now, as far as I am concerned, even though I am a lover and I also I write, I'm a journalist, a columnist in my, outside of the tiny studio, I opine a lot about the fashion industry, and I keep up with a lot of the trends in the fashion industry. And I'm going to say this to people. Here's something that we do and that I've noticed since I was a wee girl. I noticed that people get caught up and tripped up in things that say designer with a label on it. I grew up in the time period where having and wearing designer labels was a thing. Okay? And that happened in the late 70s and the 80s, where there is a difference between wearing a pair of Wrangler jeans and wearing a pair of Sassoon jeans. Okay? Big difference. There's a big difference from wearing some Kmart blue jeans and wearing some Jordache jeans, or some Gloria Vanderbilt jeans, or some Calvin Klein jeans. See, labels was a really big thing when I was coming up. People really started getting into wearing wearing labels of luxury brands, wearing your designer wares and your designer purses, and, really showcasing that. And the reason this happened, I really believe it had to do with overconsumption, really wanting people to see and believe that you were something that you were not. Because really, who could afford those things? I remember meeting back up with one of my girlfriends from middle school, and I really loved this girl because she was a dresser. Okay, if it was Sassoon, she had it. If it was Calvin Klein, she had it. She wore the latest styles. Okay, and I remember meeting back up with her and talking to her about it. And she told me, she said those weren't her clothes. She said those clothes belonged to her aunts. They belonged to her mother. And she said that she would sneak them out and she would wear them because her mother was only able to afford to buy her, certain things from maybe JCPenney or whatever. She wasn't able, here I am thinking that she's wearing, she has a closet full of Sassoon or a closet full of Gloria Vanderbilt and no, that was not true. That was not true. But she was one of the best dressed girls in the school. So the way we present ourselves to the public is we present a perception. And I learned early on that the perception that many people want to put out about themselves is that they are wealthy and that they have money. And the best way to show that you have money or that you have acquired wealth is by the labels, the luxury designer labels that you have on your body or that you use to accessorize yourself. That's number one. Number two is the type of car you drive. You know I'm telling the truth. You know your girl. You know I'm telling the truth. You know I am telling the truth, but I'm not lying to you, because this is how our world operates. That's how the world operates, because we want to be perceived as mostly something that we are not. Now, there is nothing wrong with owning and loving designer luxury goods, okay? Because I have a few. I just told you I am wearing a Prada t-shirt because I am a Prada girl. I love Prada, okay? I have Prada bag. I have Prada handbags. Here's one right now because I love Prada, and I got that love certain designer goods. You know, I just got that love from my grandmother. My grandmother was she's a retired designer, and one of the things that she loved as well was Prada, and I grew to love that as well. But even though I have Prada on my shelves, okay, I am not just a person who consumes designer goods. I'm the type of person where if it looks good and it's well made, I'm down with it. If it's beautiful, and I don't care who made it or who designed it, if it's beautiful and it catches my eye, I'm with it. I roll with it because that's who I am. I have never been the person that felt that I had to be defined by the things that I wore or the things that I wear. No, I have never been that type of person. The most beautiful pieces of clothing that I have ever owned were non-luxury, were non-designer. Well, actually, they were designed by my mother and my grandmother, who are designers. Or they came from designers that are not so popular or well known in mainstream fashion, in the mainstream fashion industry. So I grew up wearing beautiful things that did not necessarily broadcast who they were made by. And as I noticed here on YouTube and then and on social media, there is a lot of consumption of luxury designer goods. And content creators are also thought of as influencers, right? Influencers. And what influencers do is they influence you to fall in love with what they are, or fall in love with the item, fall in love with the perception of that item, fall in love with the philosophy of that item. They want you to fall in love with this item so that you can go out and buy it, so that you can go out and consume it. That's their job as an influencer, is to influence you, influence your thinking. And what happens is, not only are social media influencers attempting to psychologically warp your thinking and influence you to buy something that you really don't like or that you really don't need. Commercials do the exact same thing. Magazines do the exact same thing. They say to you that if you want to live a better life, you need to live in this type of house. If you want to be perceived as a person who is really up and coming, a person who really has it together, you need to drive that type of car. Because that type of car is going to make you look good. Am I right or am I wrong? I'm correct. So we are being serially influenced every day, not just by the people that we follow on YouTube who are influencers, or the people we follow on Instagram who are influencers. We are influenced and bombarded with propaganda every single day. Every time you turn on the radio, there's an ad for some type of a business. You know, there's some type of commercial on television. There's somebody that's trying to influence us to buy their product, to consume their product. And what we have to do as the consumer, we have to become aware and disciplined enough to know whether or not this item that is being influenced to us is something that we really need, that we really want, and that we really desire, truly desire. Now let's get into my story. Let's get into why we are here. I almost purchased my very first Louis Vuitton Neverfull. Almost. I was this close to getting it. Now listen, let me be honest with you. As I have said, I am a Coach girl. I have always been a Coach girl. I fell in love with Coach way back in the 80s, probably the late 70s. The first Coach purse I ever saw, the first Coach I ever saw or laid eyes on was the Coach Basic bag. And that was a purse a handbag that one of my mother's friends had. And I loved it. I thought it was the most beautiful thing. If you know anything about Coach, vintage Coach from back in the 70s and 80s, you will know that it's not a flashy item. It doesn't have bells and whistles. Vintage Coach is a really beautiful design bag with real glove tan leather that stands the test of time if you treat it right. I have now in my Vintage Coach collection bags that go back to the 1970s that are in excellent condition or that needed love, and I have rehabbed them and brought them back to their former glory. Okay, some of these bags may have cost $300-400, but when I began to collect them and rehab them, were less than $100. And if you are a returning guest to the Tiny Studio, then you know I already have a budget when it comes to things like that. And I don't buy any vintage bag for over $50. I stay under $50. $45 is my limit, but inflation has been hitting, so I've been going up a little bit. However, I love Vintage Coach. That is my thing. That's what I love. But I have had other bags in my possession. Not just Coach. I have had Salvatore Ferragamo bags. I have a bag that I cannot say the name, but it's a designer bag. I have Prada bags. I have several sitting right here because I love Prada. I have had Michael Kors. As a matter of fact, I have several Michael Kors bags in my collection. I'm not just a Coach person, but I like other things. Okay, I have handbags in my collection that have come from boutiques where the designers are not as well known as your big 3 or 4, which is Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Saint Laurent. Those are your big ones. I know I'm missing somebody else, but those are your big designers, But there are designers out here that design wonderful bags, beautiful bags. I have carried some of the most beautiful, beautiful bags in my time, okay? And they were not Louis Vuitton. They were not Saint Laurent. They were not Chanel. They were not Gucci. They were not Prada. But they were beautiful, if not more, even if some of those bags surpassed the beauty of those luxury names that I just ran off to you. It's starting to rain here, so if you hear a little thundering, that's what that is. But I say all of that to say this. It's really about how you see yourself. What is your design aesthetic? What do you love? Don't let influencers influence you to buy something so that you can have a certain commercialized aesthetic. Don't allow influencers to influence you. And I was this close to purchasing my first Neverfull. I've never liked monogram Louis Vuitton. That was never on my radar. Okay, that just was never on my radar. I have never felt compelled to buy a Louis Vuitton handbag before. And probably within the last year, I have been considering buying and investing in a Neverfull. Okay, and a Neverfull is just a monogram bag. It's a Louis Vuitton monogram tote. And right now, I believe the tote has went up to almost $1,300. So I was willing to plop that much money down. I was willing to do it. But that's not me. That has never been me. So I had to ask myself some questions, right? I had to ask myself, what has pushed me to the point where I want to have a Neverfull too? I mean, let me just break it down to you like this. I was so influenced or felt the pressure from social media to buy a Louis Vuitton Neverfull that even though I didn't readily have the money for the Neverfull, I was willing to invest. I was willing to go over to DH Gate and invest in a dupe. And plop down a couple $100 for a good looking dupe. Not a cheap looking dupe, but a good looking dupe. I was willing to plop down $250, $300 for a dupe. True story. And then I had to sit back and ask myself, hold up. Come on, girl. Now, what's going on with you? What is happening with you mentally that you would want to buy an item that was never on your radar, that just happened to cross and become a line, come into your aura, come into your space. And here you are, you get ready to get your credit card out and lay down some money on a bag that you never liked. How is it that all of a sudden you like this bag? It's because I have been influenced. I have been seduced. And I had to wake up. Because here's the thing. Having a Louis Vuitton Neverfull, how is that going to better my life? How is that going to make me a more interesting individual? I'm already a star and a legend in my own mind. I don't need a Neverfull to complete me. I don't need a Chanel flap to complete me. I don't even like that bag. And here I was contemplating, saving up for Chanel. And then Chanel just raised their prices. And even on the pre-loved market, a good Chanel is going to run you $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. Let's just be honest. So am I willing to allow social media to influence me, to get me to thinking that I need this bag so I can look cute, look cute to you. Look cute to you, or look cute to these people out at Target. Look cute to the people at Barnes and Noble. It's an image. Because that's really what having a designer bag is all about. If you're not just using it for utilitarian purposes, it's really about image. And what you want the world to see about you. How you want the world to perceive you. And how you want the world to perceive you is wrapped up in somebody's family name. Somebody's great-grandfather's name. What about you? Who are you? Who do you choose to be? Do you want people to see you for who you are? Or do you just want people to see you as a person or individual that has no personality outside of the designer bags and things that they wear? And that's how I almost found myself falling into the trap of being influenced by these influencers here on social media and on YouTube. I love a good looking bag. Okay, let's also not negate that fact. I love a good looking bag. I love fashion. Okay, I was just watching the Tom Brown fashion runway show the other day, and I saw some beautiful artistic pieces on that runway. Beautiful. So was Chanel. I loved it, enjoyed it. As a matter of fact, I was watching, I think it was last week. I was watching, or the week before last, I was watching the Louis Vuitton runway show. Pharrell's first runway appearance. And let me tell you, there were some really, really nice Louis Vuitton bags that he had out there. Really nice looking. But they're not for me. They're not me. They're not nailed. They're not for me. And the Louis Vuitton Neverfull is not for me. I don't care if people see me carrying my vintage Coach bag. That has no bells and whistles on it. That doesn't say Coach anywhere but on the hand tag. I don't care. I don't care if I don't care if you see me wearing my Prada bowler bag. That says Prada somewhere on it. It's probably I think the label is on one side of the bag. I have to look and see. But one of my Prada bags doesn't even say Prada. You know what I'm saying? I have a Prada bag that doesn't say Prada. That you wouldn't know is Prada. But I would know. But I didn't buy it just for the name. I bought it because it was beautiful to me. And see, that's what we have to get to. That's the mindset that you and I have to get to. We have to stop allowing ourselves to be influenced or seduced into making purchases that we really do not like and don't want. Because what we're really buying is we're buying something false. We're trying to buy the prestige that comes along with it. And that is where you have that discussion on quiet fashion as opposed to, or new money as opposed to old money, the classism. Because what you're doing is when you allow yourself to become seduced by influencers or magazines such as Vogue. You know, when you allow yourself to become influenced by the trends or what is thought to be trendy, what you're really buying is you're buying into the concept or perception that this piece or article of clothing and accessory is going to translate to you are looking, or that you are a certain type of individual, that you are a wealthy individual, that you have money to just throw that you just have money to throw and to give away for a piece of material, that at the end of the day, does not describe the content of who you really are, does not fully demonstrate the content of your character, the true you inside. Unless you are superficial. Unless you are, a superficial individual, then I'm guessing yes. You know, this superficial piece of material describes you perfectly. But if you're like me, there's no way. There's a saying that you should wear the fashion and not let the fashion wear you. So when I see, when I'm out here in these YouTube streets and I see, my sisters, usually it's my sisters, my young sisters, my young daughters who are here and they're saying, I don't wear Coach. I don't wear contemporary bags, because I don't have to, I'm wearing my Louis Vuitton and my Fendi. I mean, if I'm here and I'm here and with brands like Coach and Michael Kors and things like that, they're down here and that's not me. I don't want to be down here. I'm here. I have to say, really? You only buy Yves Saint Laurent because, it gives you the projection of being here? And you wouldn't look at a Coach or buy a Coach because it's down here? You gotta think about that. How does that really sound? It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good. We invest in fashion because it's beautiful. Because the aesthetic that it provides us helps really bring out and help to I don't want to say flourish, but it helps to accessorize the person that we are. That's why you wear fashion. That's what makes fashion art. And let me explain something else to you. Designer accessories, that's where many fashion houses or design houses, that's how they make their money, off of the purses. Off of the purses. Because the true artistry is in the clothing. It's in the haute couture. That's what a true artistry is. And only very few of us can really afford a true haute couture item. Right? Yes. But the majority of us can afford, or at least pretend to be able to afford, a bag. And nowadays, Chanel, products like Chanel and Hermes, their prices as far as handbags and other accessories are out of this world. So you have to be in a certain tax bracket to be able to afford that. I mean, a Chanel flap going for almost $10,000? Girl. That's crazy. But listen, if you can't afford it and it's something that you like and that you really love, then by all means you should indulge. But if you're like me and you never liked the product, and one day you wake up and say, oh, hey, I think I will purchase me a Neverfull, then you need to sit back and think about that. Are influencers influencing you out of your bank account? Are influencers really influencing you to, instead of wearing the fashion, you're letting the fashion wear you? If you wake up one day and say, hey, you're going to plop down $1,300 on an accessory that you never liked, you never had a desire to purchase, you never had a desire to wear, then you know that you need to sit back and you need to really think about that. Because it's really, truly not about, it's not about how many designer goods you may have, how many contemporary designer goods you may have. It's not about how much you can consume or overconsume. It's really about who you are on the inside. It's about who you are as a person, who you want to be perceived as. I want people to see me for who I am. And I don't need a luxury designer thing on my person or on my backside to define who I am, because that's not me. At night, when I get into the bed, I'm butt naked. Not a designer anything in sight. I am just me. That is the true person of who I am. Don't let these influencers influence you or talk you out of being who you really are. And that's my story of how I was almost influenced out of $1,300 to buy a bag that I really never liked. If you can relate to anything that I've been talking to you about today, please hit me up here in the comment section. Thank you so much for having this discussion with me today. And I'm sure it's going to sound pretty controversial to some, but it may resonate with others. So thank you so much for hanging out with me here in the tiny studio. If you are new here, please do not forget to subscribe. And as always, like. Yay! Because when you push that like button, that helps the YouTube gods know that there are people who are interested in hanging out with me here in the tiny studio. So I'm your girl Nell, and I will be seeing you next time here in the tiny studio. Bye-bye.